And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Welcome to the Dice Tower!
Today we're talking about a game called
Go
Ape. It's very, very similar to a game called Go Fish. I mean, most people know what Go Fish is. In Go Ape, there's a few differences. One is that instead of getting two of a kind, you're trying to get three of a kind. And the other, instead of saying something...
You have to do silly pictures.
Right. Let's take a closer look at the game. In Go Ape, you start with a handful of 5 cards that show different actions. In fact, the rules are printed on cards, something I'm not a big fan of, but what do you do? Anyway, on your turn, you have to ask a player for another card. But instead of saying something, you just simply act out the picture that is on the card itself. For example, if you're asking for this card, you would do this. When asking for this card, when asking for this card, and so on and so forth. If the person has the card that you're asking for, they have to give it to you. If you then have 3 of a kind of that card, you put them in front of yourself. Yay, you've scored a set. If they don't have the card you're asking for, then they say, Go Ape. In which case, you draw from the draw pile and add a card to your hand. Now, what's interesting about this is, if you have a card of a kind, and you ask someone else for a card of that kind and they say no, and there's multiple players, then the other players will know that you have a card of that kind and they can pull it from your hand. And so I guess there's some strategy into that. It's best to ask for cards if you have 2 of them, but even then someone can pull one of them from you. So you have to be cautious. Also, if you correctly pull a card from someone, you get to take another turn. But you're always going to get a card per turn. The game is basically the same thing as Go Fish, other than that there's 3 cards of a kind, and that there's funny actions. Alright, it's really not my game. I mean, it's definitely not a game for adults at all. It's a game for kids. So, I'll defer to Melody's opinion on this one. Do you like it?
Oh yeah. I really like it because you get to do silly pictures, and then to me, I just like it is because of the way you play it.
Yeah, and the game comes in a small little plastic container. It's pretty easy to hold and carry around, and it's the pantomimes. I found that kids really enjoy doing them.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.